We are blessed with the week 9 waiver wire. This is actually going to save some teams for once. Starting off with the number 1 pickup of the week, it's Tyrone Tracy, and it's not close. Now, yes, there will be some interesting names later in the video if you can't get Tracy, but this is the guy that you go in on. Well, yeah, if we go through and look at what he has done so far this season, it's been nothing. Even before Cam Scadaboo really took off in this offense, Tracy didn't do anything at the beginning of the season, having 5.5 points in week 1, despite playing 74% of the snaps, and 9 points week 2. And then he gets injured in week 3. Weeks 4 and 5, he misses. By the time he comes back in week 6 against the Eagles, Cam Scadaboo had fully cemented himself as really the heart and soul of this Giants team, and Tracy just simply wasn't going to get any work. But now Scadaboo's out for the rest of the season. So we need to reevaluate this backfield, which just has Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary. And knowing that this isn't a Super Bowl contender, they're not like the Chargers where they could potentially go out there and trade for a running back, right? I mean, this is a team that's rolling with what they got rest of season. And what they have is Tyrone Tracy. Now, if you just go ahead and look at his points per game from last year, they're not super compelling. He averaged 10.5. He had 11 carries per contest and 3.1 targets per game as well. But if you use the player comparison tool on flockfantasy.com and compare Tyrone Tracy's first half of his rookie season to his second half of his rookie season, you will see that in his second half of that rookie season, he was actually averaging about 13 rushing attempts a game and about 4 targets a game, averaging roughly 17 opportunities every single week. And now, of course, with those 17 opportunities, he didn't do that much. 1, he was a rookie. 2, the Giants offense was a complete dumpster fire last season. Now he's a second-year player. And at the same time, you actually have some promise or at least some upside with the New York Giants offense. Now, y'all know we've been on record saying, well, you know what? The projections, they are very low with the Giants. So maybe we assume that they are a bottom 10 offense going into the future, which I still think that is going to be the case. It shouldn't stop you from ranking Tyrone Tracy as a top 24 running back rest of season. And in 12 team formats, he probably is just going to be someone that most teams would start every week. Now, you're going to need to keep an eye out on the Isaiah Pacheco injury. It's going to be super important to get the updates on Tuesday. I'll be live streaming, don't you worry. But if Isaiah Pacheco were to miss, all of a sudden, that actually turns a 3-man running back by committee into a 2-man running back by committee, where we can accurately predict the running back that will have the goal line role for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if that were to be the case, Kareem Hunt could be a viable pickup. Now, I will say it's probably going to be a short-term rental, and Kareem Hunt at this point of his NFL career does give you a severely capped ceiling. So I wouldn't go out there and I wouldn't tell you to, oh my gosh, pick him up and jam him in a 10-team league. This would be more so if you're in like a 12-team format with multiple flex spots like the Flock League. There, I'll expect that Kareem Hunt is getting added. And if Isaiah Pacheco were to miss, he's probably going to hit a starting lineup in week 9. Or if you're in a 14-team format, obviously he is going to be viable there. I do think that he's going to be a tough play for the ceiling just because the big plays are non-existent. But in an elite offense where you have the goal line role, if Isaiah Pacheco were to miss, Kareem Hunt could be an option. So make sure you keep that on your radar for the waiver wire in week 9, depending on how this plays out. Now, moving over to Tyjae Spears, we have Spears ranked as our running back of 41 rest of season. And that's because he comes out this past week and he has a game with only 12 opportunities, yet he scores more points than we've seen from Tony Pollard all year long. Which, I mean, as somebody who has Tony Pollard on their team, I will just come out and say right now, this dude is done and dusted. We actually had an additional report coming out today that Tony Pollard could potentially be a trade candidate. So if you have Pollard, I wouldn't go ahead and cut him just yet. Hopefully, just hopefully, he gets sent to a team like the Los Angeles Chargers and helps out your boys' running back room. But realistically, if Spears were to step into the full-blown starting job for the Tennessee Titans, I think I could project him out as a top 24 running back that week based off volume, athleticism, and receiving upside. Now, I'm never going to tell you to start Tajee Spears if Tony Pollard is healthy running alongside him in this offense, because realistically, you just can't start any Tennessee Titan running back that's only playing 50% of the snaps. Every single week, they're going to be like higher, lower, 8.5 fantasy points on Underdog Fantasy, which obviously you don't want a player like that in your starting lineup. But of course, if you ever want to check out any of those higher lowers for Underdog, you can always find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the description, as well as the comment section of these videos. If you use code FLOCK when you sign up to Underdog Fantasy, you're going to get $100 added to your account. And on top of that, you will get a free Devon Achane pick, higher, lower, half a total yard for Thursday night's game. And I'll actually just tell you right now, they are expecting Lamar is going to play in that game. They currently have Lamar higher, lower, a total of 235.5 passing yards. But also, you'll get free questions that you can ask me in the live stream. So we're streaming every single day until Christmas answering your questions. Underdog Fantasy available in almost every single state. And you can find that link in the description and comment section. Now, moving over to our next name, we are going to be looking at Tank Bigsby. And with Tank Bigsby here, I am personally going to be looking at him for my own fantasy team because I have Saquon Barkley. And the only reason that you would consider Bigsby, of course, is based on the Saquon Barkley injury, where Saquon Barkley is dealing with the groin. Now, the thing that's going to make Tank Bigsby a really tough, must-add player, like I can't put him ahead of somebody like Tajee Spears, is the reason that, one, he is a complete zero if Saquon Barkley is healthy. Two, the Philadelphia Eagles have the bye week in week 9. And by the time we get to week 10, you very realistically could just end up seeing, Saquon Barkley back and healthy, which is going to be something that I am hoping for. But as somebody who has Saquon Barkley on his team, I have some of these other handcuff running backs, such as like Devin Neal. I'll probably go ahead and cut Devin Neal and opt to roster the handcuff to Barkley himself, just in case this groin injury lingers out of the bye. The difficulty with just calling Bigsby a must-start player, though, is going to be that this could be a committee with Will Shipley, and Tank Bigsby is not a great receiving back. He will just be a first and second down running back that you're hoping for a touchdown. Now, Dylan Sampson will be our next RB. Dylan Sampson, very similar setup here, where we don't know if Quinshon Judkins is going to miss any time or not with this AC joint, but they have the week 9 bye. So it's very difficult for you to go out there and view Dylan Sampson as some must-add running back, because even if Judkins were to miss, Dylan Sampson's probably going to be in a committee with Jerome Ford. Dylan Sampson's definitely the running back that'd be more interesting between the two players. Now, I will say, very similar to how I'm treating the Saquon Barkley situation, if you have Quinshon Judkins on your team and you are rostering another one of these like random miscellaneous backup running backs like Blake Corum, I would go ahead and cut Blake Corum, pick up Dylan Sampson, just in case you have Quinshon Judkins missing a game or two coming out of the bye week. Now, let's move over to wide receiver, where I think that there are a lot of traps, but one wide receiver that doesn't look like a trap is actually going to be Troy Franklin. So typically with these trap wide receivers, what we see a lot of times is, they had 4 targets, but a big receiving touchdown. So people think it's going to be predictive going into the future. They pick them up and ultimately they don't do anything. Well, Troy Franklin's actually been seeing target volume as well. Franklin's only had 2 games this season with fewer than 5 targets, and he's actually had 4 games this year with 8 or more. This is also the second straight game of double-digit fantasy points, where Troy Franklin was the #1 wide receiver in fantasy this past week against the Dallas Cowboys. And Troy Franklin, coming out of college, had a very interesting prospect profile. He was a high-volume target earner in college. He did so at a young age. He declared to the NFL at a young age. He fell in the NFL draft due to size concerns. Athleticism wasn't exactly where you wanted it to be. But it looks like it just took him a little bit of time to get going. This is the second game that we've had with 20 or more fantasy points this year. So I'm now treating Troy Franklin in the same range as these guys like Kayshon Boutte and Matthew Golden. And we get another impressive performance. He could move into, every week flex consideration for me. He's not there yet just because I'm a little bit hesitant with these wide receivers that we haven't seen anything from, but he's getting close. Now, Christian Watson was a wide receiver that I thought was kind of a trap last week, but he comes out and he plays a decent amount against Pittsburgh. looks good as well. He is the deep threat for Jordan Love, who's playing incredible football. I'm not expecting that Tucker Kraft is able to go out there and dominate the way that he did this past Sunday night every week. So I think Christian Watson is for sure on like the upswing, and you can potentially look at him. I would view him in the same range as like the Tennessee wide receivers, where like Jamiri DK is our next guy, and he's actually playing more and more every single week. Like he played 55% of the snaps in week 7. He just played even more in week 8, and he actually saw 8 targets in this game. Now, I'm going to have him behind Christian Watson, who we've seen be a viable wide receiver in fantasy, who at the same time has much better quarterback play with Jordan Love. I'll have him behind a player like Troy Franklin, because Troy Franklin is getting even more volume in a much better offense. And I think DK is probably still just like a distraction on the waiver wire, because here's my thing. Do you want to start anybody in Tennessee at wide receiver? No, you don't. And that's even without Calvin Ridley in this offense. So once Calvin Ridley eventually makes his way back, you're probably even less excited to start DK. Now, the 2 wide receivers that people in your league may go out there and pick up, completely avoid them. Let your league mates waste their spots on them. Are going to be the Texans guys like Jaden Higgins. Yeah, played more snaps now than ever because you had no Nico Collins. Xavier Hutchinson. Yeah, had a touchdown in a big game because you had no Nico Collins. Nico Collins going to come back this next week. He's going to be the only startable wide receiver in Houston. I really hope CJ Stroud continues to play at this level, because yours truly went out there and traded for Nico this past week. And I really am hoping that he performs well for us. Now, Harold Fannin is more interesting than like any of these wide receivers on the waiver wire. What's actually really important to note is that the Browns today claimed a tight end off waivers. Then they signed another tight end to the practice squad. And then we actually have David Njoku on the final year of his contract in his 9th season with the Cleveland Browns. And now there are a ton of trade rumors circling around David Njoku. So this is a team that's playing for absolutely nothing. I mean, if I was David Njoku, I would do anything I possibly could to go to a legitimate contender, even if you're not going to be like the true tight end one there. Send me to Philadelphia, right? Let me compete for a Super Bowl. I'll play in 2 tight end sets if I'm David Njoku. But if that were to occur, Harold Fannin, who has now seen like 5 straight games with 80+% of the snaps, will turn into just an every week starter at tight end. I moved him up to my tight end 12 rest of season. And honestly, I think he's more interesting than guys like Dallas Goedert rest of the way. Now, the defensive streamers that you're going to run with this week. Last week, my defensive streamer that I picked up was horrible. I picked up the Atlanta Falcons, thinking, hell, the Miami Dolphins, they're not great. Apparently, Atlanta's even worse. But the number 1 defense on the week is going to be the Los Angeles Rams coming out of the bye. Early lines are looking like they're going to be a 13.5 favorite against the New Orleans Saints. And yeah, the Saints project to score the fewest amount of points in the league this week. The other offenses that project extremely poorly are going to be the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, the Packers will be a top defense. The Tennessee Titans, so the Los Angeles Chargers, are 100% in play. The Texans project poorly, but you already know you're rolling with the Denver Broncos. The defense that I picked up, honestly, I want to say back on Saturday, because it was just going through and looking ahead. I get to this part of the year, and if my bench is good, I'm fine kind of like streaming a defense a week into the future and holding a defense onto my bench. I wouldn't say to do that in every league. It's a situation that's very specific to your own team. I picked up the Detroit Lions. Right now, the Lions look like they're going to be 8.5 point favorites against the Minnesota Vikings. And early lines actually have the Vikings only outscoring the Texans, Titans, Panthers, and Saints this week. And the Detroit Lions have been one of the best DSTs all season now. And then the Patriots DST against the Falcons will be an option, especially if Michael Penix is injured. The Texans DST is always an option. And then the Jags get to play the Las Vegas Raiders with both teams coming out of the bye. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you and hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. And of course, if you wanted to get that free Devon Achane pick, higher, lower, half a total yard for that Thursday night game on Underdog Fantasy, the link will be in the description. It'll be in the comment section. Code FLOCK will get you $100 added to your account after you play your first 5. And on top of that, you'll get that free Achane pick and free questions that you can ask me in the live streams. And we're live streaming every single day until Christmas, answering your free questions. But I think that's all I got for you. I appreciate you, and I hope I get to see you out in the live stream.